And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Terrific show today. Much more coming up, folks. Over the years, you and I have discussed all things automotive, including battery-powered vehicles, EVs, they're called. Today, I have a special treat in store for you. Just this week, you may have heard one major car maker announce their plan for all their cars to be battery-powered beginning in 2019. On the Car Clinic hotline now is the foremost battery car designer in the industry, Henrik Fisker. Henrik is renowned for iconic creations like the Fisker Karma, the BMW Z8, what a gorgeous car that was, Aston Martin DB9 V8 Vantage, VLF Force One, and many more. Today, he's sharing his vision for making the impossible possible across the entire EV industry in the near future. Henrik's vision, the Fisker E-Motion luxury car. Henrik, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Appreciate it. Good to talk to you again.
It's great for you to be back on Car Clinic. Tell our Car Clinic listeners and viewers about some of the Fisker E-Motion features and design elements.
Well, one of the important things for me when designing this electric car was that we had a clean sheet of paper, so I really wanted to take advantage of the electric powertrain. And what I mean by that is the opportunity to change the proportions of the vehicle, which essentially creates more interior space in the same size of vehicle that if you would have a gasoline engine in the front and a gas tank in the rear. So now that we don't have that, we could actually extend the cabin both forward and rearward. And we can also extend the wheelbase to give more room for the battery and shorten the front and rear overhangs to sort of still keep the same overall lengths that we wanted. So this car looks extremely sporty. It's very sculptural. It looks very powerful, but it actually has the interior space of, a BMW 7 Series, which is quite amazing for such a sporty-looking car. So that was one of the main goals I had with the proportions. And when it comes to the actual design language, I wanted to incorporate some of the technology, which also means we're going to see a change in car design as we go forward towards electric vehicles. So, for instance, we don't need a big grille up front of the car because the grille obviously came from the giant radiators that were needed to cool the gasoline engine. And now that we don't have that, instead I've incorporated a LiDAR, which is an advanced radar system for autonomous vehicles and other safety features in the vehicle. And so this is integrated into the front end of design. And at the rear, I've actually created a very functional, very aggressive aerodynamic feature on the lower end, the rear diffuser, which really works well an electric vehicle because you've got a complete flat aerodynamic floor of the car. So there's a lot of interesting features that you can design into this vehicle now that it's an electric car instead of a gasoline car.
Fisker, let's shift gears and go inside the car. It has been my experience that with regard to all EVs, you immediately know you're in an EV automobile because Spartan comes to mind. So tell us about the interior of the automobile, because this is, after all, the Emotion is a luxury car, is it not?
Yes, it is. And we're really looking at what is luxury of the future. I do believe that we do have certain feelings about what luxury is. I mean, if you're at home, you enjoy a great soft leather couch or a beautiful chair. And those type of elements we are obviously carrying into the interior of this vehicle. So there is certain definitions of what luxury is, but we're also trying to take that to the next level. What is happening in the future and how do we use our vehicles in the future? And specifically, if we're going to get to situations where we're going to have autonomous driving, at least in sort of stop-and-go traffic, where we're actually going to be able to take our hands off the steering wheel. What do we do when we do that? What does that enable us? And so that's one side of it. The other side is just because you have an electric car doesn't mean it can be extremely luxurious. So we're really trying to take luxury to the next step, creating some amazing seats, which reminds you more of a fantastic, comfortable chair at home versus a typical, more Spartan, car seat. So we have emphasized that. We have also emphasized the digital part of it, the user interface, the screens in the vehicle. We are designing a whole new user interface, which we think is going to really change the way, specifically the driver is operating the vehicle. So there's a lot of very exciting things that we're not quite ready to show yet. That we want to keep it secret for a little while, but we expect to show it sometime in September this year.
Well, that all sounds really interesting to me, and I can't wait to see the interior and get to drive one. Let's move under the hood. Well, of course, in this case, under the hood means under the floor. I understand there's some new battery technology that's going to be involved in this automobile as well.
Yeah, so we have done a lot of research in battery technology. We have looked at graphene. We have looked at solid state, which, by the way, we have several patents on. Some of these new technologies are not going to be ready for when we launch the car in 2019. So we are looking at state-of-the-art battery technology, NMC. We have a partnership with LG Chem. And basically, not only this chemistry is probably the best out there right now, but also our battery pack. We have developed a proprietary battery pack design which enable us to put more cells within the same space. So it's incredible dense. And that means that we have an extremely long range. So it'll be over 400 miles on this vehicle. So that's something that I also think is important to bring the electric cars to the next level, where you don't have to worry about the range of the car. You'll always have range enough, and you don't have to charge it too often if you have an over 400-mile range.
Now, Fisker, you mentioned charging, and I'd like to touch base on the charging. As you know, that's one of the points of anxiety that I think that Americans and consumers will soon get over if there's some way to speed up that process. What about the Emotion's ability to charge?
So my fundamental belief is that if we truly want to have the electric vehicle to become mainstream, we have to change our whole thinking regarding charging. I don't really believe that the future should be that you're sitting in a supermarket parking lot for 45 minutes charging your car. I don't think anybody feels like doing that.
Agreed.
It's too long.
Mm-hmm.
If you forgot to charge your car last night and you're going to work, you can't go by the supermarket and sit for 45 minutes to charge your car. And what if it's occupied? Then you have to wait 45 minutes until the other guy is done. So reality is, I think for this to get mass market, we have to look at our existing gas station infrastructure, which already have the real estate. We already know where they are. We're used to it, and they're very well placed. So in my view, we need charging stations at the gas stations, but also nobody wants to spend 45 minutes at the gas station. So what we have developed is a ultra charger, which means you maximum will stay 9 minutes. You won't be allowed to stay more than 9 minutes, then you have to leave. Because that way we can get the typical flow that you have in a gas station. And that charger will give you right now with existing lithium-ion battery 9 minutes charging, equivalent to 125 miles. But we also have technology that will work specifically with our battery that will actually be able to go up to about 300 miles in a 9-minute charging. So it demands a little bit different way of charging the car. We are not using a cable because that would be way too thick. If you're using a cable, also mean to go to a higher voltage. So not a 450 volt, but 800 volt. So that's something our car will be able to do in the future. But even with this charging system, you'll be able to take some of the existing other electric cars and charge them about 125 miles in 9 minutes. So we think that's where it's going to go. So it becomes eventually like going to the gas station.
Well, I couldn't agree more. We're talking with Henrik Fisker, founder and designer of the Fisker Emotion Luxury EV car. I'd like to move, you mentioned demand, consumers demand safety. So touch on the Emotion's safety factors for us.
Well, I think safety is always going to be, evolving and improving. And what we did was when we looked at the front end of the vehicle, we saw the opportunity to create a unique crash structure, which we actually also have filed a patent on, specifically because we don't have an engine anymore. So we have a lot of space there where we can create a unique crash structure to absorb, specifically the offset, the new offset crash that's going to come into the regulations. So we have an extremely safe car. Of course, the battery itself is enclosed in an extremely safe structure. So I think safety is always going to be number one for us, and we have created even some new additions to that. And then, of course, on top of that, you got the active safety, which essentially is going towards a high level of autonomous driving or autonomous features, which essentially is also safety features, which doesn't necessarily mean you take your hand off the steering wheel, but it really helps you avoid accidents by early braking and other such things. We're also looking, it's really a safety feature for your beautiful wheels, where we're going to have an automatic parking feature where you will never scratch your wheels. So I think that's something that a lot of people will enjoy.
Well, you can put me at the top of the list with regard to curbing a wheel, because that's one of my, bones of contention, even with my own driving, and we all think we're good drivers. We talked about safety, so let's shift gears and talk about service. That's, as a veteran shop owner, Henrik, I know service, 46 years. What are your plans for servicing the new Fisker cars?
So you will never actually personally have to take your Fisker to service, ever. You'll never have to take it to service as an owner of a Fisker. So what we have created is we own 50% of a group called the Hyper Shop, which will become the EV Hyper Shop. And with that, what we are going to do is we have these connected service shops, which are smaller service shops, many of them are family owned. There's already 36 of them. And I think it's very important to make sure that you have these family-owned service centers around the world and in the local communities. And what we do is, because they're able to offer actually a more effective, lower-cost service, because they don't have to invest into these giant palaces, what we're going to do is we're going to have a concierge that when your car needs service, we have a predictive service system where we can actually monitor the car and see when it needs service. And when it does, a concierge will pick up your car. It'll basically alert you and ask you, and be synced with your calendar, and can see if you're at work or you're at home, and we'll ask you where we can pick up your car, at home or at work. Then we will pick it up and take it to the nearest service center that has availability, and hopefully service it during the day. And before you leave work, the car will be back. And our service staff will be able to go in and open the car with a digital key, so you don't even have to go out and give the keys, and you will never really know the car was at service. So that's how easy it's going to be in the future.
I think that's an excellent service plan, and I, having been in the service business for 46 years and hosting Bobby Likis Car Clinic for 26 years, know that can work, specifically with the communication between the owner and the shop owner. What about, and my last but not least question, any demand for sales? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, someone has to buy the automobile.
Yeah, I mean, we're selling direct to the consumers, and obviously very early stages, because we are, still about 2 years away from delivering the car. But we actually have received quite a lot of deposits already. We had received over 1,500 emails just on request of putting down deposits. So we're reaching out to all these people as we speak. We kind of started last week, just before the 4th of July holidays, and we'll continue to do so. So you're able to go into our webpage and actually get a sort of a slot to be able to maybe get a car early on. We do have a lot of reservations already. And what we're doing is we're going to have experience centers in high traffic areas where you're going to be able to go in both and get a virtual test drive, so even your kids can get a test drive, or you can obviously go and get a real test drive in the vehicle, and that will be still some time away. But until then, those who want to make sure they get in the early line can obviously put down deposits, a $2,000 deposit, or you can wait and see when the car comes out and go and take a look at it in reality and get a test drive.
And Henrik, we're looking. You inferred or implied that we're looking at 2019, a couple of years. So you truly believe that you'll be rolling these cars off the assembly line, and where will they be assembled?
We're going to assemble it here in the U.S. We are not quite ready to talk about location yet, but we have identified a location. It is an existing facility, so we don't have to build it from scratch. We just have to refurbish it. Mm-hmm. So we are very good in timing when it comes to that.
Henrik Fisker, designer, entrepreneur, visionary, and soon-to-be history maker in the automotive industry. Henrik, thank you so much for joining us on Car Clinic today. I'd love to test drive one of your Emotion cars when it's available. In the meantime, thank you for joining us. A website where we can go for more information, if you will.
Thank you very much, Bobby. It's at fiskerinc.com.
Thanks again, Henrik, and the best of luck to you. I can't wait to drive one.
Thank you very much.